thank you everyone for joining Pepperjam's SEO webinar. Obviously, there are going to be a series of webinars around SEO. We're going to do our best to give you a breakdown on how we look at SEO and some of the key things we think you need to be looking at to improve your overall SEO performance. But before we jump into everything, my name is Chris Graham. I'm the Vice President of Organic Search here at Pepperjam. And along with me, I have Steve Weber, who is our Director of Organic Search. And we also have Christine, who is with our marketing team.
All right, our agenda today really breaks down into two pieces. The first is we are going to speak about the importance of user experience. We have a couple of slides we're going to walk you through there. And the second part is really going to begin what areas to optimize in 2016 and going forward. And one thing to keep in mind is we're going to scratch the surface today, get a little more in depth the next time, and for the remainder of our 4 lessons here. So on the very last slide, if you stick with us, opt in and join us on our next webinar, and we'll teach you even more. So stick with us. Without any further ado, here's Chris.
All right, guys, so user experience. One of the things that is really a hallmark for us here at Pepperjam is the fact that user experience is at the center of everything we do for SEO. And there's a really good reason for that. You can't know all the ins and outs of the algorithm. You're not always going to be clear about why one competitor is beating you out for a term. But what you can always be able to tell is whether or not you're providing a solid user experience. And if you look at a lot of the data points that are out there, many of them are really directly correlate to user experience. So if we talk about something like page speed, one of the biggest things that we see on a regular basis is cache, and not having your cache controls set out far enough. Now, why is that important? It's not really something that impacts the quality of your website, but what it does impact is the experience that each user gets when they come to your site, especially when they come back multiple times. All right, so that's just an example of how this works. The other piece of this, and the reason I think that it's really important for everybody on this call, is we don't all have an extreme depth of knowledge when it comes to code or exactly how the back ends work. If you're working with a third-party developer or you're just running into particular issues, one of the things that you can always ask yourself is whether or not the issue or concern that's coming up, say you're looking at Google's page speed insights, does it impact user experience? You know what that experience is like. You go through it on a regular basis. So you can definitely be able to look at certain issues that are going on your site and be able to relate to whether or not you're providing a quality user experience or whether or not it's something where you're really hindering the experience of each of your visitors. The areas that we really delve into this are around links, around the search engine results pages, so what your actual listing look like. And then for on-site, we want to look at targeting, which is, are we getting to the right page? Page speed, content, so are we providing additional information, and then interference, filtering, breadcrumb, navigation, and site search. And a lot of those are about what's really the structure of your overall domain. All right, so links. There are very few examples where hunting and weddings would naturally go together. The same is true for hunting sites and wedding sites. You guys have all seen it. I know everybody on this call has probably heard of the JCPenney fiasco where Penny just got slammed because they had a ton of links coming into their site that were coming from irrelevant sites. Little black dress links that were sitting on automotive sites, things like that. Always ask yourself the same question. Do you share the same audience, and does the content that you provide additional benefit to their audience? What I mean by that is if you've got a site that's dedicated to fashion, and you go out and you get a link from another fashion site, that's great. But are you just regurgitating the same things that they've already got on their site, or are you actually providing their visitors an opportunity to learn something new or see something new? So does the audience fit, and are you actually benefiting the user experience on that third-party site? So always keep that in mind. We're going to go through and look at some of these other terms or concepts by looking at the actual results for the search 55-inch smart TV. So SERP listings. There are a lot of things that go on in the SERP listings, and the SERPs are extremely important to how you're going to be able to rank for terms. All right, so first thing you have to ask yourself is, does your SERP listing contain the keyword? If it doesn't, then you need to change it, or you need to create new content that's more appropriate. The content should be naturally targeted to the keyword. Don't try to manipulate it. And what I mean by that is that if you've got a term, you're trying to rank for little black dresses. You've got a page out there that's talking about little black dresses, little red dresses, and little white dresses all at the same time. You have a mixed message there. That's not really the best possible content to rank for that term. Go create content that is dedicated specifically to little black dresses. When you do that, obviously you want to create your title tag and your description around those concepts. Does it include a value proposition? This is really important. Click-through rate is extremely important to your rankings, and bounce rate is extremely important to your rankings. Whether it's price, quality, convenience, or some other benefit that provides the best possible experience for your visitors, be sure to let them know that. So if you have the best content because you've gone out and you've done an interview with 10 different designers, you want to point out this is the best content because of this. Or you want to have something that's a tagline around the lines of top 10 dress designers talk to us about little black dresses. You want to give them the pitch. That's your value proposition. That's what motivates people to click on your listing. We also want to make sure that we're giving them the relevant information so that we can reduce the chance of bounce rate, right? So we want to get them to the right content. So when you're writing out all this stuff within your description and your title tag, be honest about what's going on there. Don't try to do a bait and switch. Finally, structured data. And we're going to talk more about this later in the series, but if you notice in this very top listing for the Samsung 55-inch class LED, at the bottom of that listing, you've got a bunch of blue links. Those are possible because of using structured data. It's only going to happen if you're in position 1, and it's kind of random how Google decides when they want to show it. But the great thing about it is that if you have your page structured properly to make these things occur, then you give your visitors and the people who are searching for product the ability to find other options. I've seen situations where Best Buy actually had a listing that said, best LED TVs under $200. That clearly is hitting a different motivation. The person who wants a TV under $200 is going to click on that link, and they're going to get to the right content that much more quickly. So it's very important that we look at that. One final thing I want to say about the SERPs, around the idea that this is your marketing message. They always say that a picture is worth 1,000 words. Remember that you're now competing with those shopping results that are at the bottom of this view. Those PLAs are going to get a lot of attention, and they've completely changed what click-through rates look like for the organic space. You have to use those 200 or so characters that you have very well to present a really solid marketing message. All right, targeting. Are visitors getting to the right content right away? Don't make the user try to find the content. We all know what a pain it is when we just came from a place that had plenty of other listings claiming to have what we need. So they came in, they searched on Google, they looked for little black dress, they come to your site, and you're not getting that content right off the bat. It's easier for them to simply hit the back button and go through and look at other listings. That's just the reality. So get them to the right content from the very beginning. Page speed. This is another really big one. What we have on here is a graph that shows the difference in bounce rate between different page speeds. So if I'm at 3.3 seconds, my bounce rate goes up to 20%. If I'm up around 3.9 seconds, that's more than double that. We're going to be in that 24 to 25% bounce rate. And you can see that it just continues to scale up. Again, think about this from user experience. Page speed is something that people harp on all the time. But the reality is that we all know what it's like to go to a site, wait for it to load, and decide, you know what, this is taking too long. I'm just going to go back and find something else. Google is able to see that. They're fully aware of the fact that you were just sitting in on their results, you left, you went to the site, and then you came back and you chose another site. All that is to Google is a signal that you are not delivering on what you promised to provide to the consumer. Content. Are you providing additional information quickly so that the audience can determine if they're in the right place? I apologize, guys. You can see that Best was turned into Bed Buy for a lot of these slides.
Yeah.
But either way, so are we getting them? If we're not getting them to the right place right off the bat, how do they determine that? Is there additional information? You see that Best Buy does a really good job information about the product. They add a lot of screenshots in there, but they also provide opportunities for the consumer to go to other places, to figure out the Ultra HD buying guide, to go find out whether or not a 4K TV is what you really want. And we're using Best Buy in this case because, quite frankly, Best Buy crushes it, so they're a great example for you to look at. Are you hindering the ability to read the content or view products with pop-ups or other annoyances? Again, user experience. We all know what that's like. We all know what we're trying to combat there, right? So while Best Buy does have a chat box that will pop up to offer assistance, that does not happen immediately. It's designed to happen after a trigger later in the session. So you go further down the page, you go to certain spots on the page, it will activate that chat box for you. And in essence, what they're doing is saying, hey, first, we want to give you the content that you asked for. Second, after we see a little bit of your activity, if we feel that for some reason you're not getting what you want, we're going to try to find a way to provide it to you. And then the final piece of this is really a cluster of things: filtering, breadcrumb, navigation, and site search. These are all pieces that are important to helping the consumer begin to looking at, right, or begin to narrow down what they're trying to find. In this case, we're coming into a specific product page. So we completely understand that we got them to what we felt they wanted based off of the search. That's great. But we also are providing them with additional opportunities to go through and find exactly what they need. So we have up in the top left-hand corner, you guys may be able to see this right in the top. You can see the breadcrumb where it says 4K Ultra HD TVs. Right next to it is TVs and TV and home theater, right? So we're giving them many, many different ways that they can kind of take a step back and get a larger view to maybe target down on something slightly different. Within the navigation, you can see that they have a slew of different options there that are all pretty specific. We want to make sure that if they don't get to it as quickly as possible, or we're not getting them exactly what they want from the beginning, that they have the opportunity and it's easy for them to go through and give it a second shot. Again, this is designed primarily to help avoid the bounce rate. We want to keep them on the site. If you don't keep them on the site, then you can't get a conversion. And that's the most important goal that we all have. All right, guys, so please remember, shoot your questions over if you have any specific questions around this. I'm sorry if there's a little bit of an echo. Okay, moving forward. Thank you, and I'm going to hand off to Steve.
Thanks, Fred. So as we get into our lessons of where to focus in 2016, many of you had questions that were general. They were around best practices. And over the next couple of webinars, there are 3 more to come, so please stick with us. We will get into exactly what you can focus on. And I wanted for this first piece to really give you a few takeaways that you could take away today to get started. So as you can see, when I changed Eastern Standard Time to Eastern Daylight Time, it was for the whole PowerPoint. So you got to use your imagination everywhere you see Eastern Daylight Time, that's Eastern Standard Time. But going right into this, SEO isn't like it used to be. So all of us are in digital marketing. If you're on this webinar, you have a website and some sort of outcome in mind for your users and that you need your users to take. For many of us, that's a conversion, that's a sale. And the end result for that is our own ROI. But Google has a goal too. And Google is at the stage even before they get to our site. So in order to get more traffic from Google, we really need to give Google what they want. So here goes. Here's Google's goal. Google's goal is to deliver the best result for any given query for their users. And who are their users? We are, all of us. So over time, Google is really tightening up on its algorithm. And you hear a lot, oh, SEO is dead, this and that. And really, that's not the truth. Search engines are just getting better. They're getting more efficient. And what are they getting more efficient at? And that's bringing effective, authoritative, and trustworthy websites up to the top. So with their latest algorithmic change, they've relied on machine learning as they head closer to the goal of really utilizing artificial intelligence. So they're not quite using robots yet, but they are comparing data on any given query against a machine learning list to say this user got what they wanted or they didn't. So as we think about in 2016 what to optimize, we're really optimizing for a Google that knows exactly when a user got what they wanted. So what that really equates to for us is we need to give our users what they want. So what should we optimize for? I give you two things here. First, you should optimize for how your users are going to use any given page. Think of what the outcome for that page is. If it's a contact us page, don't try and optimize it for rings. It needs to be great at being your contact us page. So focus on what the page does first, and second, now we can focus on getting the traffic and focusing on the best way to say that on a search engine result page. And one metric which we can crystal clear see if we're doing a good job at that and where we can optimize better is, of course, our click-through rate, like Chris said earlier. So on this second slide, I wanted to give you a tip here. If you go to google.com/webmasters or bing.com/webmaster, sign up for Google Search Console and Bing Webmaster Tools. And what that'll do is it'll give you a free interface to see how these two search engines interact with your site. And in doing that, you'll be able to see any errors, any warnings, as well as get some insight for how Google and Bing can come to your site more often and rank you more. And in their data, you also get this click-through rate metric that you can monitor.
As one quick caveat on that, you will find that the data that you see in Bing is probably significantly different from what you see in Google Webmasters. And we do advise that you use both. Bing is a lot less friendly in just making assumptions for you than what Google is. And to be honest, if you're looking at the Bing data, that probably means that they're telling you much more tightly how to optimize. So the Bing data is very valuable. If you're not using Bing, make sure that you get a Bing Webmaster Tool account and start tracking that data as well. It's going to give you some signals that you're not going to get from Google Webmaster Tools.
So as we go into where exactly to optimize and where you can take these two takeaways of optimizing for intent of the user and the click-through rate, where it makes sense to start is on the back-end data, the metadata. And as we talk about SEO, it's this area of where you don't want to optimize it quite exactly like you used to in 2005. So what I'm talking about here is the meta title. And I give you a couple of rules of thumb here in this slide. And what we really need to think about is now SEO really is Google, but two different Googles. It's Google Desktop as well as a separate Google for mobile. And as traffic and our favorite technology piece that's by our side morning and night, our smartphone, as we use that more, it's a little bit different how to optimize for mobile than it is for desktop. But the takeaway that I'm going to give you here is optimize for mobile first when it comes to metadata. And with that, Google at the moment, they're experimenting with character counts. So what I'm saying is optimize for mobile first. And the sweet spot that I've found is if you make your title tags around 40 characters, you will look correct or right and click-friendly on both mobile and desktop. Now you do have many other characters that you could add to it. It will truncate. You'll see the ellipsis at the end if you go too far. But I find that 40 characters is a good limit. So what exactly should you say in your title tag? I think first and foremost, you want to write a title that makes sense for the page. I would stop trying to focus so hard on optimizing in 2 or 3 keywords that say something similar. Just make a title that's click-through friendly for your audience. You, of course, when it does come up for any given search query, want to be enticing that you do gain traffic from Google. It all starts with the person searching, but ultimately they need to click to you over your competitor. So when we talk about the meta title, ordinarily this blue text that I'm pointing an arrow towards, in most cases that is the meta title. At the bottom here on the white side, I give you an example of what I believe a good 40-character meta title would be. Again, you have to use your imagination because I did write the word best, B-E-S-T, but Best Blue Widgets 2016, and I still like to use a pipe to indicate where that came from. On mobile, some of the times I would say on a home page, you probably want to put the brand first if you're going to write a longer title tag, but it's just something to think about that mobile and desktop are a little bit different.
To that point, guys, if you're going to make adjustments as far as where your brand is going to be located, look at what your competitors are doing. Pay attention to what the folks in the top 3 positions are doing. There are certain market sectors where having the brand at the beginning is extremely valuable, and there are others where it's just the opposite. If you look at automotive listings for auto insurance, you'll notice that most brands put their brand name at the beginning of the title. That's because the brand is extremely important in motivating people on what they should click for. If you're doing something much more generic and something that is not as long-term an investment as auto insurance, then quite often we want to put the marketing message at the beginning and then mention the brand. But pay attention to what your competitors are doing.
Next, in terms of back-end data, we're going to talk about the black descriptive text that in most cases Google makes their description on their search results page. And that's the meta description. It's also the same story as the meta title, where you don't want to use the description the same way that you used to a couple of years ago. So with the sweet spot of the description, I'd say keep it under 100 characters. You want to keep it around 98, and it will be completely visible from your first character to your last character. You still want to write a description that makes sense for the page and still entices the visitor to learn more. In this example, I wrote, our blue widgets are the best, plain and simple. Want to know why ours are the best? Read more. And what I'm trying to do is optimize for best blue widgets and entice the user to read more. It's said that Google no longer really uses the meta description, but when it's searched on the search engine results page, anytime the keyword is in the title or description, it is bolded. So it gives the visitor another chance to focus on your listing in order to gain the click. So before, when we said sign up for Webmaster Tools, we talked about monitoring for click-through rate. And here's what that would look like on the right side. I just wanted to recap and show you exactly once you did have an optimized title and an optimized description, how you could see what is the percentage that people are actually getting to that search engine results page and clicking through. So I give you the steps here. Go to Google Search Console, click Search Traffic, and then click Search Analytics.
Make sure that when you're doing this, you are using Google Search Console. I know a lot of us like to use Google Analytics for a lot of the search engine optimization data. The click-through rates within Google Analytics are incorrect. They're based off of all the different times that you rank for that term and combines all those impressions into one total number. So make sure, again, use your Google Search Console to pick up click-through rate data rather than trying to use that from Google Analytics.
All right. The next thing we're going to optimize for and focus in terms of back-end data is the image alt text. Now, there is a little bit of a lag as I toggle through the screens, but we can share the deck with you at a later date. So what you want to do with image alt text, it's really the alternative text that you can add for any image. And what I recommend doing is optimize it for every image that's on your site. The alternative text or alt text, you really want to describe what the image is. And on the slide, I don't know if you can see it yet, I don't think it's changed. I have a puppy playing with a tennis ball. So it's my alternative text is Dalmatian puppy playing fetch. I would say an example of a bad alt text would be to leave it blank. And I would say one that's maybe too long is if you're telling an entire story or you're treating this like SEO in 1998 where you're trying to optimize for best widgets. You wrote best widgets in every variation of the term hundreds of times. So you no longer want to do that. That will get you penalized. You just want to describe what the image is. I would say one word probably describe what the image is. And another reason you want to optimize all of your image alt text is really from an accessibility standpoint. So whether it be someone doesn't have a very quick internet connection and an image just takes an extra second longer to load, this text can describe what the image is. Where it's helpful is screen readers. If someone were to have a disability, it does describe what the image is as well. The last piece that we're going to talk about today as we bridge the gap from back-end text data to data that's actually written inside of your pages is I wanted to take a moment to talk about how we break up our content. And in this piece, we're going to talk about the header tags. So the header tags, historically, you'd have one H1, which is said to be the most important, going and filtering down to the 6th header, so H1 through H6, with 1 being the most important. The rule of thumb is that you only have one H1 per page, and this is another area of SEO that's said to not be as important as it once was, but as Chris and I can tell you, when you start to rank for highly competitive terms, you will see in the top ranking positions pages that did take the time to do this. So recently I was looking up for some tips on how to SERP, and I came to this WikiHow page that talks about how to SERP. And what interested me the most is that they were using several heading tags, and it looked like a good example because on this particular page it only had one H1, and for the rest of these you can break the headers up wherever it makes sense to. But I would say the tip when it comes to heading tags is to really write descriptively for your audience rather than for any given keyword. And what this is an opportunity to do is to improve your engagement with your user. If you're like me, you're not going to read this page from top to bottom. You're going to skim it. And what the headers afford you to do is maybe you didn't need to read the beginning. Maybe you only needed to read the tip, the part about catching the wave. So you skim down and go to that. With these headings, though, I wouldn't take these as being the best example because WikiHow, the section on video, really could have said what the video was of rather than just that it was a video or what the tip was of. I use this more so as an example for how they divided the page rather than what they should or could not have said.
One of the rules that I typically use when I'm explaining this to people is, especially since we're talking today to publishers who are really putting out a lot of content. Think about this from the perspective of MLA style. Google is a very academic system. A lot of the concepts of the algorithm were designed based off of the things they learned when they were creating their thesis. So MLA style is something that I think we can all relate to. It's an outline of exactly what that particular page is. Same thing is for the rest of the site, right? So when we're going through and we're doing things like steps or community Q&A and warnings, we can also have H tags in there that link to other parts of the website that really help Google understand the structure of the entire site. So you could have a link in here that talked about best places to go surf. That simply connects each of these pieces of content to each other. We put an H2 or an H3 on that, depending on what level of importance you think should be there. But it tells Google also how closely these two pieces of content relate to each other. So there's a lot you can do. There's also the reality of, again, we do a lot around usability and accessibility for people with disabilities. These H tags are very valuable to those readers. It makes it very easy for somebody to figure out how they're going to skip through the page to find the content that they want. It's their version of being able to go through and actually skim the page. So keep that in mind as you're doing it. It's 25% of the audience that's out there. It's an important audience.